So Kant says, what is left of metaphysics now, given Hume's problem? Well, metaphysics is going to not try to investigate what's inside the thought bubble, what's inside of our experiences. That's for science to do, Kant thought. What metaphysics can do is investigate what are the kinds of necessary connections. What is the form of our experience such that anything at all could show up inside the thought bubbles? So, what are the most basic, fundamental interconnections between our experiences that make experience possible? So, he thinks the form of our experience is inside the mind a priori. That's the sort of rationalistic part of his proposal. So Kant says before we can even start talking about causality, Hume had kind of gotten ahead of himself. Causality is less basic than time and space. We need objects to follow one another in succession. And in order to even start conceiving of causality, we would need objects to follow one another in succession in time, and that would need to play out in a spatial dimension. So he says time and space are some of the most fundamental connections in the form of our experience. So he's going to think time and space doesn't show up inside the thought bubble. Objects show up inside the thought bubble. Objects and events like the billiard ball or one billiard ball crashing into another billiard ball and so on. So time and space aren't things that we can have a perception of inside the thought bubble. Rather, they're something that ties all the thought bubbles together. They're part of the form of our experience. They're like frameworks in which we can perceive objects. Like if you have a poster that's framed, time and space are the frame, and the poster is all the objects and events that happen in time and space. So how do we come to know about time and space? Well, they're sort of in our minds. They structure our experience. So we can come to know about them, even though no particular experience can give us an impression of time and space itself. We can come to know about them because they're part of the structure of our own minds. So how does he argue for this? The first argument he gives is that space is presupposed for outer experience. He says, look, we don't learn to perceive objects in space through experience. Rather, the experience of objects presupposes that we can relate them to each other and as outside ourselves in space. We don't perceive relations and then form the intuition of the concept of space. Rather, we perceive objects already outside ourselves and separate but related to each other, and that's just space. So outer experience is impossible. So experience of an external world, for it to even seem to us that there's an external world out there, would be impossible without the intuition of space.